Bungie is getting sued today is not the headline that I was expecting to see, but that is the news story that we have to cover. Before I do so though, I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer. Everything we're talking about in today's video is all allegedly. We don't have any concrete evidence or proof of this. This is just a lawsuit that is being put against Bungie, and we'll see what ends up being coming of it. This is an article from IGN with the title reading, "Former Bungie HR manager is suing for wrongful termination after she reported potential racial bias." Now those are some pretty wild allegations. Let's see exactly what's going on in here. She alleges her recommendations for sensitivity training were met with hostility and denial. Destiny 2 and Marathon developer Bungie is currently being sued for retaliation and wrongful termination by a former HR manager who alleges she was let go when she raised a potential case of racial discrimination to her supervisors. In a complaint filed earlier this year in the state of Washington, plaintiff Ingrid Alm recounts that she was hired by Bungie in May of 2022 as an HR manager, coming to the job with over a decade of experience. Just a few months into her employment, she says she was instructed to investigate the performance of a particular employee referred to as James Smith. But when she sat down to speak with Smith, he allegedly pointed out that he was the only black employee on a team of 50 individuals and expressed that he felt he was being singled out and racially targeted by his supervisor. Interesting. Those are some definitely steep allegations there. Alm goes on to say that she shared this information with her supervisor and recommended that Smith's supervisor receive diversity training, but alleges that her recommendation was met with hostility and denial. So she's meant to investigate a particular employee at Bungie, and this employee says that they feel they're being racially targeted. So they go to the supervisor and say, like, you need diversity training? I don't know. It's already getting really icky really fast because solid evidence to say that they're being, racially targeted. I understand, like, I guess the evidence is that they're, one of 50 individuals on the team and they're, the only person of color, I suppose, or only black employee in this case on the team. So that's why they feel like they're being racially targeted. But I'm not sure if that's quite enough evidence, but obviously this is just one side of the story. So let's go ahead and continue. She says she was told that the individuals she was recommending take the training had been there for a long time and are highly regarded, and her recommendation was denied. During a follow-up discussion about the incident sometime after, Alm was additionally told her supervisor didn't want to touch those conversations with a 10-foot pole. That's rough. I mean, those are obviously really tough conversations to have. If you're gonna accuse people of that, you have to make sure to have some solid evidence. It's already getting very he said, she said type of thing. Let's see what happens next here. Following this, Alm alleges that Bungie recommended terminating Smith's employment. Alm says she disagreed, saying this would be racial bias, and in September approached Bungie's director of equity and inclusion, Dr. Courtney Benjamin, for advice. Benjamin suggested that terminating Smith would be too risky considering the evidence and advised a written warning to be given to Smith instead. Okay, that's actually pretty wild, and obviously there's probably like an instant report of that. I don't know what the heck is going on with this case. This is actually wild though. This is getting pretty ugly here. Again, all allegedly, none of this is proven by any means, but however, Alm alleges that her supervisor became extremely angry at her for having reached out to Benjamin and gave her a written warning over email. Alm's supervisor also called Benjamin to apologize for Alm approaching her, supposedly telling Benjamin that she didn't want her to think that she was a racist. Later in September, Alm claimed she was placed in needs improvement category during a review, despite previously having views from both peers and clients, and was told by her supervisor to look for an off-ramp and exit from the job. Interesting. Shortly after, Alm says she found her email and Bungie platform access cut off without explanation, and despite multiple attempts to contact her supervisor, received no response for several days. Wow. So really it seems like it's between the Alm individual and their supervisor. That's kind of like a battle between the two of them, and the person that's going to get more credibility would be the outside sources and the evidence that shows that one person is the truth in the situation versus the other person actually discriminating. But it's a big battle between the two of them in regards to how they're dealing with this James individual. At the end of September, Alm was informed that her resignation had been accepted, despite insisting that she had not intended to resign and wanted to keep her job. She says she declined to sign a document stating she voluntarily resigned, and then an email sent to the company's chief police officer, Barbara Covey, explaining the situation went unanswered. Bungie's response to Alm's complaint is brief, does not include an alternative narrative of events to counter hers. Bungie instead either flatly denies almost every part of Alm's narrative without further context, or denies them with the statement that Bungie lacks knowledge or information sufficient to form a belief as to the truth or falsity of the allegations, which obviously is smart. Bungie, the legal team is going to want to handle this. I don't even know what would happen in the court in regards to that stuff. I guess the documents and the incident reports would be brought up. Bungie's represented in this case by Mary DePaulo Haddad, a Fox Rothschild lawyer who professes expertise in getting wrongful termination lawsuits dismissed and developing strategies that serve my clients' financial goals and minimize costs. when litigation is unavoidable. Alm is suing Bungie for retaliation and wrongful termination and asking for recourse in the form of lost past and future wages, damages for emotional distress, and attorney fees. A jury trial is set for January 22, 2024. Wow, that's actually crazy that this is going to trial. This is the type of thing that often gets resolved, at least in my understanding, and I'm no legal expert by any means. I've obviously researched a good amount of these legal things in regards to Bungie and other gaming companies being sued, etc. This is the type of thing that usually gets resolved with like an out-of-court settlement to sort of, bring the issue to an end. But it would seem as though Bungie is sticking to their ground, saying that this person was not wrongfully terminated on any grounds, and they're sticking to their side of the story, saying that they were, and they're willing to go all the way to trial, which is pretty crazy. It takes a lot of time and money to get to trial. It's not that it can't get resolved until then, but obviously that's 3 months away from now. We'll actually see this go to trial. So I'll definitely be bringing you an update when that goes to trial. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That'll be a pretty spicy one. The next part reads, notably, Alm was hired at Bungie just 5 months following an IGN report on the company's work culture. In it, 25 employees alleged the company had a history of allowing toxic culture to fester, including racial and gender bias, with those who reported such instances to HR alleging their reports were frequently dismissed or even turned against them. Following this report and prior to Alm's hiring, Bungie's former HR head stepped down from her role. IGN understands from sources that following its 2021 report, Bungie also hired a number of new HR personnel in an effort to address the issues from the article amid some pressure from its new parent company, Sony. IGN has reached out to Bungie for comment and did not receive a response in time for publication. Also did not respond to a request for comment. Obviously, neither one of them are going to want to comment on the issue. They're not going to want to make their case worse for them. Like, Alm pushes too hard. It's smart for them to keep quiet and allow it to go to trial, and Bungie the same. Like, they want to keep it under wraps as much as possible. But IGN clearly is blowing this one up with this huge article, and I wanted to talk about it because it was a pretty spicy one. I did not expect to hear stuff like this going on. Obviously, Bungie is a big company. There's tons of employees there, and you're going to have issues with HR from time to time, and you would hope that it would be, a bad apple from time to time and not a bad work culture or bad work environment, which I don't think it is. But again, I can't speak for it because obviously I don't work there. I'm not a part of it, but I imagine there's some bad apples from time to time, and that's kind of my interpretation of some of this. I don't know if the plaintiff or the defendant is the bad apple in this case particularly, but that's what we'll find out when it goes to trial. That's going to be a wild. A lot of the time that coming to a settlement is basically trying to not fan the flames worse than they already are. That's kind of the goal of the settlement. And I think that from the legal side of things and Bungie's legal team, they want a resolution. They don't want this to become such a big issue because the repercussions are terrible. Like, obviously if it goes to trial and it goes in favor of Alm, if I had to say it's possible, I mean, I don't know the evidence, so I can't say definitively, but if it goes in favor of Alm, the repercussions of that would be awful. Someone's going to get fired, obviously, and then there's also going to be like serious racial bias or some form of racism within Bungie, as is being alleged. So those people would be like fired. Whoever fired them would be fired, right? Disastrous, right? That would be like the biggest PR nightmare ever for Bungie. They don't want that, which is why usually what they do is come to a settlement. Like, usually that's what like the legal teams advise of, because something of this nature, something this big, if it's not doesn't go in Bungie's favor, is like a potential like it ruins the credibility of your company. It can ruin the credibility of your company. So you want to resolve this type of thing before it goes to trial, unless you are supremely confident that this individual is a bad actor and that you're going to win your trial, and then it's just a slam dunk all around. You don't have to pay out this individual the sum of, I don't know, $1 million or whatever, right? It would be something absurd amount of money. But to Bungie, $1 million is nothing when they've got billions, right? So if it goes to trial and they win, then it's an all-over win, an all-around win. Feels good, but you're risking a lot, a ton of bad PR. It's a very, very interesting play. We'll see. It might still come to a settlement, like I said. Once the pressure gets cooked up, like from stuff like this IGN article starts cooking up, and then news sources like myself and others start to talk about it, it starts to really, heat up the boiling plate, so to speak, right? And then it presses the issue to a settlement even more, This individual that's claiming, wrongful termination, money will resolve the issue for them. Like, that's kind of the goal. Like, I don't think they're going after it just for a morality basis entirely. I think they're, seeking a hefty settlement, if I had to guess. That would be my assumption. If Bungie throws enough money at Bungie's legal team, throws enough money at them, says, here, let's settle this, then I think it could be resolved. And I think that's probably what will happen if I had to guess. I don't think this is going to trial. If I had to guess. I don't think this is going to trial. They will come to a settlement. As time goes on, if they continue to deny the settlement agreement, they'll just keep increasing the amount until eventually it comes to a settlement. You know, when you have billions of dollars on the line and a very, you know, reputable company, whether I know people will roast that and say Bungie's not this, not that, but Bungie is a very reputable company. You don't want to ruin that reputation over a case as small as like one potential individual, whether they're in good faith making this lawsuit or whether they're in bad faith. You don't want to lose potentially everything over that. We shall see. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, smash the like button, and click on the screen here to watch another one from the channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Later.